typically viewed as opposed to the 20 sections
Mm-hmm.
of the 13th Amendment. So, I mean, when we talk about the ERA, I get concerned about the fact that we've not addressed that issue.
So the issue of
People of African descent,
Mhm.
I don't say blacks because that's a slave
Yeah.
term in my mind, or Negro or African American are only
Yeah.
considered 3/5 of a human being hasn't been adjusted in the Constitution still to today. So my concern is when you say that, and we know that this is a reality,
yeah.
but when we talk about the 14th Amendment, given the fact that the ERA and the Civil Rights Act that is supposed to be somehow blended in this new paradigm, it blows my mind that we haven't addressed the 3/5 issue.
So I think there's some disagreement, and I agree with you that what's interesting is that we did not explicitly repeal the 3/5
Right.
clause in the same way that I think the only thing that we've actually ever explicitly repealed, and it's a topic on which I'm doing a lot of research and writing now, is the Prohibition Amendment, right? So we get the Prohibition Amendment, it's the 18th Amendment, and then the 21st Amendment says we're actually actively repealing all of it, right? What we did about the 3/5 clause was we assumed that by writing all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. And actually, that was actually supposed to be a repudiation of the Dred Scott decision. But then you get, sorry, I keep touching the screen when I don't mean to. But if you then get, arguably, this is also what is supposed to repeal the 3/5 clause, right? Because they're saying now every male inhabitant counts for the purposes of apportionment, right? And so that was what is intended by this. And of course, there's this problem that they say male, right, from the standpoint of women in this period. But this is supposed to repeal without explicitly saying we're repealing, right? But I'm interested in hearing, I'm interested in hearing why.
That's a long discussion.
Yeah.
If you're joining us, we can have that.
Yeah.
I want to have that chat.
Yeah.
I do, because,
Yeah.
I'm sitting here and listening, and I do understand what's going on and understand what you're saying. So, yeah, I'd love to have that conversation.
Yeah, no, there is a very.
Since you're working around that issue, because that's a concern
Yeah.
for me.
No, I think that is actually a really good concern to raise, because why do we? I think the fundamental question also is, this is the oldest constitution in the world, and why do we put up with it, right?
Exactly.
Many other countries have started over and written new constitutions in the 20th century, right? And so why should we? So I'll show you. Like I could take out my.
The so-called Negro, African American, and so-called colored still constitute a slave term, and therefore there is no nationality for people of African descent in that Constitution. So the 14th Amendment is really, to me, a joke.
Right, because we carry around the pocket constitution and the 3/5.
They all have it.
Right, and it's still sitting there, right?
It still seems
Yeah.
wrong
Yeah.
with me, and it
Get that
blows my
same
mind.
Yeah.
Because in fact, when you talk to particularly people in Congress about this, they just goes out of their mind. It's just
Right.
like they see.
Well, I think so. Here's what I think. I think that we all grow up in a culture of constitutional reverence, right? And it's almost like a religion in this country. That I think, and all the oaths in court, it's about defending the Constitution, and children are taught about the First Amendment, particularly, and the freedom of speech, and I think we're taught to revere the Constitution in ways that make it almost blasphemous to say that it's 200 years old and it's not really doing a very good job, and we need to start over. Right? And I think it's not just that people are too religious about the Constitution. I think a lot of people who see the Constitution's flaws don't want to start over because they're really afraid that if we start over, there's all kinds of, because we live in such a divided country, we'll end up with all kinds of things that we may not necessarily want if we try to open up that can of worms. Yeah.
I agree with part of what you're saying, but I
Yeah.
think if there's a profit margin, we still talk about the economics behind it. Was particularly when we talk about the 14th Amendment. I will specifically, I'll give you for instance what happens to the life of black and brown folks in the legal system. And the 14th Amendment certainly is a moneymaker for that particular system, and so I tend to take it a little bit further in that particular instance.
Okay,
You know,
Sharon.
but the social discourse is an exercise of cleverness and timing, as far as I'm concerned. I thought that your talk today was brilliant because there were things that are there in front of all of our faces that we just, because of society, because of the question of patriotism, which is what you're talking about, how we're revered in this country, to understand that we have this de facto governance, and to put it in less than optimal terms means that you're treasonous. You know, there's no middle ground. There is no middle ground.
Yeah.
And now the current administration that we have has underscored that in such a way that really leaves 90% of the world out. Or 90% of America out.
Excuse me.
But
Excuse me. I'm a Republican.
no.
And I
I'm not making it a partisan
I know what
issue.
you're saying, but you.
I am saying by
you said this
rhetoric.
administration.
Yeah, but I just didn't mean it to be specific.
No,
listen to me. I'm talking about not a partisan issue. I'm saying the groupthink of America, which is a really much bigger part than a partisan issue. I mean, you know, Dean Sook already said that this is not a partisan situation, even though it's been couched as a partisan situation.
Right.
What happens is this is the classic have and have not discussion. Because the have-nots have never been able to weigh in. Because they don't have power or access.
Right.
And that's why they're have-nots.
Right.
So my point is, if we are going to have this discussion, if we're going to really be a more perfect union, as the goal of the Constitution was, and the whole e pluribus unum situation is really going to be embraced, then what needs to really happen is we have to overcome our prejudices. And there, at this point, there's so many of them that the country really has lost its way. And we don't trust each other, nor do we have the leadership quotient that once this country depended upon. Because it was a de facto acknowledgement, well, this is my senator, this is my governor, so they must be right. There was no questioning of that. And now there's a lot of questioning going on based on motive and opportunity, to put it in legal terms. But that's why you're here, okay? As the future leaders, as the people who understand, like Dean Sook said, this is about making recommendations for the next generation. This is good to understand this and be very, very well versed in this. So I encourage you to ask the questions of the Dean while she's here. That's it.
Gonna come up.
Have you looked at any data that shows, because I'm noticing a lot of more women are born than men, so I do see this changing in the future.